Hi everyone, my name is Basu, I'm CTO of Kovair. Welcome to the overview of Kovair Distributed Agile Solution. Let me start with the question, what is Kovair? One way to look at Kovair is it is a box of multiple different applications, both in the areas of Application Lifecycle Management or ALM and IT Service Management or ITSM. In the ALM side, we have the implementation of more traditional methodologies like iterative, waterfall, phase gate, etc. Also, we have the implementation of agile methodology like Scrum. On the traditional methodology implementation, we have the applications, more traditional applications like requirements management, test management, issues management, etc. And on the agile side, we have the implementation for different kinds of product backlogs like the epic, the feature, the user stories. Also, we have the release and sprint management, Scrum management, etc. On the ITSM side, we have the implementation of ITIL version 3, which includes service request, incident problem change, CMDB, also the knowledge base. Now, each of these applications is 100% web-based, and it is web architected grounds up, and this is perfect for a 24/7 global distributed team. The second component of Kovair is its industry's leading process automation technology called Omniprocess. Using Omniprocess, you can actually create and automate any workflow process using its drag and drop Visio-like interface designer. And you can create processes, multiple processes for any of the applications which are built in Kovair. So for example, if you're using Agile, you can create one process for issues management, another process, for example, for user stories. User stories, maybe how it will be estimated, how it will be approved, etc. And all of these processes can be actually implemented for a distributed team. So automatically the tasks will be created for each individual for these different kinds of entities. The third component of Kovair is its integration technology called Omnibus. Omnibus uses enterprise service bus architecture, which is much superior to point-to-point integration technology, which most of the other vendors use. Also, it uses web services, which means that using Omnibus, you can integrate any third-party vendor tool or even your own in-house grown applications. Independent of where are they located, they can be located anywhere in the world. They can run on any kind of technology platform, whether it is a Windows, Linux, Sun, etc. Even they can be running behind the firewall. So using this integration technology, you can create an ecosystem of your existing tools, and on top of that, you can add Kovair with its all agile implementation. Finally, Kovair is also a platform, which means that using Kovair's drag and drop interface, you can create an application, business application, as powerful as any of the built-in applications. Now, what is really great is that you don't have to write a single line of code for that or any kind of scripting. Everything is by drag and drop. As a matter of fact, all the built-in applications are also developed using exactly the same drag and drop interface. Moreover, using Omniprocess and Omnibus, you can process enable your application, and you can integrate your application with the other software or tools independent of their locations or technology. Now let's talk about the Kovair products. So Kovair has basically three products: ALM Studio, which is again the implementation of either the more traditional methodologies or the agile methodology; ITSM Studio, which is the implementation of ITIL version 3; and the Omnibus integration middleware. The customers can buy any of these products individually or any combinations. These are the different adapters available for a number of different tools. These are the Omnibus adapters. As you can see that for different ALM functionality, we have got multiple different tools available, or adapters for multiple different tools from different vendors are available. Kovair is delivered either as on-premise. Typically the larger customers, they prefer an on-premise model, and we offer both named user license and concurrent user license for perpetual licenses. For smaller companies, actually, they can use Kovair software as a service, and by sharing the hardware and software, their annual subscription can be substantially lower than the perpetual license. These are some of Kovair's customers. As you can see, that Kovair is being used by a wide range of companies, both in corporate IT as well as for smaller product development companies. We also being used by federal, state, and local government, and also this is used by large outsourcing companies. Let's talk about the Kovair Agile Entities. Now, you will hear this word entity quite often from now on. Entities are basically the objects which are implemented for creating an application within Kovair. So to implement Agile in Kovair, we have a entity called product backlog, and there are different types of product backlogs implemented. For example, the epic, the user stories, the features, issues, etc. These backlogs are ranked for importance, as well as they are their estimations are done by planning poker. Sprints are so basically a project is divided into a number of releases, and the releases are divided into a number of different sprints, and each of the sprint is time boxed, which basically means that you can have a sprint for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, etc. Of length, and then you have the product backlogs which are assigned to a release and then to the sprints. Kovair also allows the scrums. So one important point here is that as I have mentioned, that Kovair implements the distributed agile. Now, I'll just tell you one small anecdote here, that recently I participated in a panel discussion about distributed agile. So one of the questions was that is distributed agile oxymoron? Because originally when agile was implemented, or when it was kind of first initiated to the world, it was a pushback against the more heavy-duty kind of methodologies. And one of the, I would say, highlight of Agile was a small team in a single location, etc. But over the time, the team became very distributed in multiple time zones. So many companies would like to implement Agile, or at least to take some of the useful, good, successful areas of Agile, but would like to use a distributed team for that. And Kovair actually allows you to do exactly that. So Kovair implements a number of different tools which helps you in using Agile methodology, but for a distributed team. So one of the example is the Scrums. As you know, that original Scrum meeting for Agile is a meeting every day people do. All the team members are in a room, standing only, and they have in a half an hour, 15 minutes, they have the Scrum meetings. But when you have a distributed team in multiple different time zones, how do you do a Scrum meeting? So Kovair actually allows you to do asynchronous Scrum meetings with the different kinds of development status update and planned implemented and impediments, backlogs, etc. And all of those can be done both synchronous as well as asynchronously. Kovair also includes test cases. Now, strictly speaking, that test case management, the way we have implemented it is, it comes from a more traditional methodology. But we find that test case management is an integral part of software development, and when you have the user stories, and user stories are covered by the test cases, then you have a much more robust development methodology with the Agile, and along with that, more traditional test case management, and Kovair actually includes that. Let's talk about some of the salient features of our Agile application functionality. You can capture the product backlogs, test, issues, etc. in a number of different ways. For example, of course, you can enter it using the application itself, or you can import it from Microsoft Word, Excel, text. People can email their issues, for example, or they can submit from their portal or their intranet or internet, any kind of web form. Kovair also supports a rich text description, which means that your user stories can be very rich description, including the embedded images, the bullet numbering table, all different kinds of fonts, etc. As a matter of fact, you can do a copy and paste from your Word document also. Kovair includes built-in versioning. So when you have a user story and you change it, you have an option of creating a new version. And Kovair provides a number of different tools to create and manage those versions as well as to view them. That includes a version diagram. You can do a version comparison. You can do branching and merging of different kinds of version. By the way, many of these things are actually imported from the requirements management application or more traditional requirements management. We have taken some of those very useful things from the requirements management and applied to the agile methodology. So you are actually getting best of both the worlds when you're using Kovair Distributed Agile Solution. Kovair includes a number of different ways of looking at a number of different items. So for example, if you have thousands of issues or the user stories, you do not work with all the 1,000 items simultaneously. You work only a few items. So Kovair gives you these tools like the views and the filters and search, etc., which allows you to go into only those items very quickly. We have talked about the process, so you can actually create multiple processes for each of the different entities in Kovair. Traceability is one of the critical features for any kind of ALM implementation. It has been actually derived from the traceability of traditional requirements management, but we have extended it quite a bit. Not only you can create traceability between the different kinds of product backlogs, so you can have the whole traceability hierarchy starting from the epic to the feature to the user stories, but also you can have the traceability between the user stories and the test cases, so that you can have the test coverage of the user stories, then the test cases and the issues, so that when the testing is done and the issues are found, you know that which test cases it belongs to. So you can have the whole traceability starting from the issues back to the test cases, back to the user stories, back to the feature, back to all the way up to the epic. So you can have the complete thread of traceability within Kovair. Not only that, Kovair also gives you a number of different tools, not only to create the traceabilities, but to the view and manage them also. Kovair has a number of different ways of creating reports. We have got actually 4 different reporting engines: HTML, Excel, Crystal, and Microsoft Word. And using these different kinds of reporting engine, you can create a number of different very useful agile reports like the burn down chart, velocity chart, backlog and sprint percentage complete, etc. Many of these metrics, actually almost all of these metrics, you can put on the dashboard itself, so that you can create multiple dashboards for different roles in the team. So you can have a different dashboard for the Scrum Master versus a different dashboard for your developers or testers. Also, you can create Microsoft Word document, which is in a nice format, and you have complete flexibility on this format, and you can create, for example, the release notes or the test compliance reports, etc. Typically, these reports, which are in Microsoft Word document format, are very good to share with your customers or your partners, etc. And finally, using Omnibus, you can integrate with any other development tool. So for example, if you have the developers using Eclipse or Visual Studio for coding, they can actually see their user stories coming from Kovair sitting within the Eclipse and Visual Studio. They don't have to leave their environment like the Eclipse or Visual Studio. So Omnibus integration actually allows you to do that. Similarly, if you're using a configuration management tool like the Subversion or the Perforce or ClearCase, you can integrate those with Kovair so that people can create the traceability relation between the source code, which is in Subversion, to the user stories, which is in Kovair. This is actually a very important slide, as we know that there are quite a few different agile vendors in the market. So one good question is how Kovair is different from them. The very first point is Kovair actually implements the distributed agile for a globally distributed team. And for that, we have brought in a number of different tools which actually allows you to achieve that. Can we use it for a local small team? Of course, you can do that. But the biggest value comes when you have a distributed large team and you can actually implement Agile distributed Agile using Kovair. For the collaborative feature, which is absolutely necessary for a distributed team, there are quite a few unique features in Kovair, like the collaborative process automation. We are the only tool vendor which allows you to graphically create your process and implement that, automate that for your distributed Agile implementation. One very important point here is that original Agile was a pushback against the processes, heavy-duty processes. So for Kovair to implement process really means that when you have a distributed team, a process really can help you in automating many of the mundane tasks, and you don't have to actually babysit your user stories to assign to different people. Using the process, automatically they will be assigned to the right people even when they are in a different time zone. So usage of the process actually helps you a lot for managing a distributed team. But at the same time, if you do not want to use process, you can still do it, completely doing everything manually, which typically most of the other Agile vendors offers you. One other example is the asynchronous Scrum meeting. As I have mentioned, that if you have a distributed team, it may not be possible for all the team members to be present in the Scrum meeting. But at the same time, you'd like to have the Scrum meeting because that is so important of the Agile methodology. So Kovair actually allows you to do that kind of asynchronous Scrum meeting where you are still getting all the input from all the team members, but not necessarily at the same time when they are all present by remote like WebEx or some other collaborative technology. This is another very important point. What we have seen that many organizations start with Agile methodology implementation, but over time they would like to extend it to include many of the additional features or additional methodologies which are goes beyond the Agile methodology. Kovair being a platform to implement multiple different methodologies, including the traditional ones like the iterative or waterfall or phase gate, etc., you can actually have within the same project Agile as well as some of the components of the traditional methodologies present, not only present, interacting with each other. I'll give you an example. There may be an organization which starts with the requirements management in a more traditional sense with the review and approval of a set of requirements even before starting the development. So once that requirements management phase is over, they have the set of approved and reviewed requirements, and then they start the Agile methodology with all the user stories and everything. And their user stories may be related to the requirements. So within the same interface, you can have the requirements as well as the Agile user stories, and these user stories are related to the requirements. And Kovair is the only tool vendor, Agile tool vendor, which actually allows you to mix and match all these different kinds of methodologies together. Not only that, using Kovair as a platform, you can extend the Agile to whatever is necessary 6 months, 1 year down the line, which may not be possible for the Agile from other vendors. And finally, Kovair has the unique enterprise service bus integration technology called Omnibus, which allows you to integrate with so many different tools. Now, the other Agile vendors also offer their integration, but those integrations are point-to-point. And point-to-point integration has got its own problems. It is brittle, it is complex, and also it is actually an integration between their tool and the other vendor tools. But in Kovair, using the USB, you can even do the integration between two external tools without going through Kovair, and that gives you a real flexibility and real ecosystem of a number of different tools. So today the Agile demo we'll talk about the project broken into a number of different releases and sprints. We'll see the product backlogs with the hierarchy of epic features and user stories, and then we'll create a new product backlog and follow it through using a process, and we'll see the process in the next slide. And as part of that process, we'll do the estimation effort by planning poker. We will assign different kinds of resources. We'll see that how the developer, as they are working on the work on the user story, how do they adjust the estimation on an ongoing basis. We'll also do a Scrum meeting. We'll record that. We'll also show the traceability of the requirements. Remember, I was talking about the requirements management, more traditional requirements management, and how you can have both of them working together. So we'll create a traceability between the user stories and the requirements. We'll also do a test case, which is coming from a more traditional test case management, and create a test coverage for our user stories by creating a test case. And finally, we'll show you a number of different reports and dashboards. Here is the process we'll be following. This is actually a screenshot from Kovair, the user story process. And as you can see that this is actually going through the review step. From the review, it goes to the estimation by team members. So we'll be using a planning poker for that. Then it goes to the Scrum Master for finalize the estimation and also assign the resource, etc. And then it waits for the sprint to start, because you may have certain user stories you are assigning for a future sprint. So this is an interesting thing, that unless the sprint starts, it doesn't go to the developer for starting the coding. This is actually a synchronization between two processes. One process is the product backlog process for the user story, another is the process for the sprint. So when the sprint actually starts, then only it goes to the developer for coding. Whatever developer has been assigned in the previous step. And then it goes to the tester for testing, and if there is any issues, then it goes to the developer for fixing, and that can go through a number of iterations. And finally, when it has passed, goes for verification, and then closes that particular user story. So that basically ends my overview of the Kovair distributed Agile solution, and then I will go into actual product demo. Before I start the product demonstration, I'd like to mention one thing. As I mentioned, Kovair is 100% web-based, which means that all functionalities are available through the browser. And Kovair supports different types of browsers: Internet Explorer, Firefox, Safari, running on Windows, Macintosh, Linux. One other thing is there are other tools which may have a web interface, but often the web interface is a crippled one. You cannot do everything using the web interface. You need a desktop tool to do any kind of advanced operations or administration. But in Kovair, you use browser for everything, including administrative functions and advanced operations. So we'll start with logging in as a Scrum Master, and his name is Tom. So let me log in as Tom. So when I log in, it comes to Tom's homepage, and in this particular case, Tom's homepage is a dashboard. In this particular case, it is named as an Agile Project Workbench. And this dashboard includes a lot of different what we call the gadgets, and these gadgets may be a tabular report, or these may be even graphical reports. As in this particular case, you see that there are quite a few different kinds of burn down chart, multi-project burn down chart. This is a velocity graph. This is the Gantt chart for task progress. These are the product backlog distributions. This is the different kinds of product backlog status for different sprints. So as you can see that you can put a lot of different kinds of reports and graphs in the dashboard. As a matter of fact, you can have multiple dashboards created for different roles in the team. One for the Scrum Master, another for the developer, and third one for the testers, for example. Now let's look at a couple of gadgets here. At the very top, for example, we have got 3 different releases. For our particular project, this project has 3 different releases, December, January, February, and these are the different sprints within the release, March release. So as you can see here, the December sprint is actually done, and it shows the percentage complete is 100, and all the actual time spent, the estimated time it shows. For December, actually, it is, since it is done, there is no estimated time to complete. Right now, the January sprint is going on, which shows the actual time spent. These are 42 hours, and estimated time is 110 hours. These are the accumulation or sum up of all the different actual time and estimated time for all the product backlogs or user stories which are assigned to this January sprint. This also gives us overall percentage completion for this particular sprint. The February sprint actually hasn't started yet, so that's why all these numbers are 0 at this point of time. Now here are the detail of our each of the sprints. So for example, here in the December sprint, it shows that there are 3 user stories, and for each of the user stories we have the actual time spent. Since all of them are completed, all of them are 100% completed, that's why there is no estimated time to complete. But on the other hand, our January sprint has these 4 different user story assigned to that, and each one have the actual time spent, and some of them, all of them have some estimated time, and it gives you the percentage complete for each one of them. Similarly, if we go down, it has got the February sprint as well, and since the February sprint hasn't started yet, that's why these are all shown as 0. So using this dashboard and some of the reporting capability, the Scrum Master can see what is the status of each of the sprint, including the current sprint, at top on his dashboard on his homepage itself. Now let's go to one of the sprints. What we'll do is actually we'll go to the release and we'll create a new user story from there, and then we'll follow that user story starting from that release. So let's go to the release tab here. By the way, if you look at the top here, these are all the different entities as we have kind of mentioned as part of our presentation. So you have the projects, releases, product backlogs, sprints, daily Scrum meetings, requirements, test cases. These are all the different kinds of entities there. Now this particular project is actually configured under the workspace called the Agile Solution. So you can have actually access to multiple different workspaces, and as you can see here that you can also have multiple different templates there, so you can create your workspaces based on the templates. And as mentioned, Kovair supports multiple different kinds of templates based on different methodologies. For example, you can have an agile template, you can have template for more traditional methodology like the iterative, like the phase gate, like the waterfall, etc. And a particular person may have access to different templates and different workspaces. And each of the workspace can be configured based on the particular methodology. In this particular case, we have the Agile Solution, where we have primarily agile implementation, distributed agile implementation, but as you can see, we also have additional entities like the requirements, test cases, etc., which are added on top of the agile implementation. Okay, now let's go to the releases here, and what we'd like to do, we would like to create a new product backlog user story under the March release. That is the release we are now working on. So let's go to the detail of this release, and let's create a product backlog or release backlog under this release. Now this list of backlogs under the release shows that all the backlogs right now we have within this release. You can create a new backlog here, or you can relate some existing backlogs. So for example, if you have the backlogs imported from a Word document or Excel or from other sources, you can actually relate the existing ones. On the other hand, you can directly create a new one from here also. So in this particular case, let's create a new user story. So it brings us to a form, and in this particular case, this is an issue form because the backlogs can be of different types: epic, feature, issue, or user story. So this one shows an issue form, which is the kind of a default form in this particular case. But we would like to submit or create a new user story. So that brings us to a new form. And Kovair allows you to create multiple different forms for different types of backlogs, and you can put only those attributes or the fields which are relevant for that particular type of backlog. So let's create a user story here. We'll call it contact management for restaurant reservation system. We'll also link a sprint here in this particular case, since we are doing a January sprint. So let's link it to the January sprint. We'll also take this title and put it here. And since I mentioned that we can actually have a rich text as part of the description. Let's put, for example, here, we'll put it in red color and bold it just for the heck of it. And as we come down, we'll see that there are many other sections there, and we'll come to those sections in a minute, but let's save this one. So when we save, we go back to our release. So this is the same release, and you see that now a new user story is created with the ID 210. This shows the title of the same one. It shows also the type is user story. Now let's go to the detail of that particular user story, the one we just created. You see that now it is shown in a much more detailed form. And this is another very interesting point, that you have already seen a form, which is basically the add form for user story. And this one is, as a matter of fact, an edit form for user story. So there are a lot more informations available for the edit form, and there are a lot of different kinds of sections. Now these are completely configurable, so you can create a form as simple as you want with minimum number of sections. On the other hand, since Tom is a Scrum Master, so that's why a lot more information is available to him. So in this particular case, let's quickly go through some of the different sections here. First of all, there is a planning poker section. So this is the planning poker section, and actually will not enter any value here right now. As we will be following a process for this particular user story, then we'll see that how this planning poker is used. But I'll just introduce the planning poker here. As you can see, that planning poker can have multiple rows submitted by different team members. Each one can say that who has done it, when it was done, and then estimate an effort in hours. This is a very simple format of planning poker. On the other hand, Kovair also allows a much more, I would say, involved planning poker in this particular case. As a matter of fact, let me just add a row here. I'll not actually add it, but to show you that you can have a planning poker with what is known as the complexity, that what kind of object type you have. Is it a simple, is it a medium, complex? So this is more of a function point analysis kind of thing. Also, you have the estimated mechanism. You can actually follow different kinds of mechanism, whether you are using a planning poker or jelly beans, etc. So Kovair actually allows you to implement the estimation method whatever you want. It is not necessary that you have to use only planning poker. You can have a function point analysis, you can have COCOMO, and at the end of the day, everything is kind of translated into number of hours estimated effort. Okay, so that's why we have here in this demo, we'll be using a simple form, which is this planning poker. And interestingly, we have seen many customers, though initially they thought that complex planning poker may be more useful, but at the end of the day, they have come down to a simple planning poker, the one we'll be demonstrating in this particular version. But once again, if you would like to implement any particular type of estimation method, Kovair allows you to do that. Okay, so let me just close these sections. Once again, I promise that we'll come back to the planning poker in a few minutes when we go through the process of this particular user story. Now, let's go to the next section, which is basically comments. You see that I mentioned that this is an implementation of a distributed agile, which means that your teams are all distributed. So how do they communicate with each other? The one asynchronous way of communication is by comments. So people can put comments, so they can talk about this particular user story. So this is a comment about these contact management. Sorry about that. And they can add this new comment. They can also reply to other people's comments. So what basically it does, so it shows that Tom has put this comment at whatever date and time, and then people can actually reply to this comment. So as Tom, I'm just replying again to my own comment. So basically it shows that reply. And this basically allows you to create a multi-threaded discussion in the context of this particular user story. And you can actually have this multi-threaded discussion, which is a part of the collaboration for any item, whether it is for the user story, epic, feature, requirements, Scrum, everything. Similarly, the next section has an attachment. This is also another collaborative feature of Kovair, that people can attach files, URLs, notes, etc. at any point of time. So this becomes a single repository of all those items in the context of this particular user story. So in this particular case, let me just add a new URL. For example, I'll just call it a Kovair website. So you can have all of those things in this in the context of this particular user story. Okay, the next section is the features. So what we'll do, we'll link this particular user story to an existing feature. As I mentioned that in Kovair and in Agile, actually you have this hierarchy of epic, features, and then you have the user story. So in this particular case, you can create a new feature directly from here, or you can relate some existing features. So let's go to the relate existing, and that shows us the list of features here. And in this particular case, we are working on the contact management. So let's select that one and click on done. We come back to our user story linked. Now we have a linked feature here. Here is the contact management, which is the linked feature. Similarly, we can also link a number of requirements to this particular user story. And this is one of the differentiation of Kovair to other agile vendors. In this particular case, we can have this list of requirements which has been created, approved, reviewed, etc. Using the Kovair itself or some other tools. And then you can import these requirements to Kovair, or you already have those requirements in Kovair in a different workspace or in the same workspace. So in this particular case, we already have the requirements. So let's go to relate existing and we'll see the list of requirements here. So these are the list of requirements, but in this particular case, we'll actually see it in a different view so that we can see not just their title, but their descriptions as well. So these are all the different descriptions of the requirements, along with some of the additional attributes, as you can see here. And those will help me to select the right requirements. So in this particular case, as you can see that the description of the requirements include very rich text, including the embedded images and everything. So let me select, for example, the requirement number 2 and requirement number 4. So these are the two requirements I'm linking to this particular user story. And in this particular case, I can actually do a many-to-many relations here. So let's look at the requirements here. And that shows me the requirement number 2 and 4, which are linked with this particular user story. Once again, we also have another section for the test cases, and here we can actually create a new test case for this user story, so that we can create this test coverage, and we'll show you how we can create a test case as part of the test management system, which is a more traditional methodology of software development linked with the Agile methodology here. So we'll create a new test case here. Just like before, we could have relate some existing test case, but I'll show you how to create a new test case. So I'll call it a test case for testing contact management. Okay. And you can have the manual or automated testing. So if you have, for example, a Mercury Quick Test Pro, which is an automated test tool, you can integrate with Kovair using Omnibus and then put your automated testing here to automatically run those test cases on QTP. Let me just put the description here. And then we have got different design steps. So here, for example, let me add a couple of design steps, which are basically the test steps. And so call it step 1. Here is the description. We can say do this and say do that, and then we have got the expected result 1. Similarly, we can have yet another step, call it step 2, Step 2, we'll call it do also this, and then result 2. Okay, so these are the 2 different design steps. I don't have to actually link a user stories here because it is already being created in the context of the user story. So let me just save this one. And when I save it, I go back to my user story, and here I have just created a new test case which is linked to this particular user story. So here is a test case which is linked to our user story. Now what we have done, let me just scroll up a little bit. You will see that with respect to this user story, I have linked this to a feature for contact management. I have linked to 2 requirements, and also I linked to a test case. So this is the power of Kovair's traceability. So I have created so many different kinds of traceability relation from the user story to the feature, which is another product backlog, to 2 requirements, 2 test case, etc. Now Kovair also gives you a visual way of looking at that using this relation diagram. So in a relation diagram, all these different kinds of traceability relations are shown in a visual way. So as you can see here, this is the one we are really talking about. This is the product backlog, which is related to the feature. This is the feature product backlog. Here is the test case. Okay, these are for example, the sprint. This is also a relationship because this particular user story belongs to that particular sprint. This is the release because we originally created in the context of that release. So this is basically a release backlog, and then we have the 2 requirements which we have just linked. So as you can see here is all the different kinds of relationship as shown in a single visual way. And let me show you one more thing. So for example, if I double click this sprint, that actually shows all the other product backlogs which are related to that particular sprint. So this particular diagram is not just a static diagram. You can actually expand the different nodes to see how these different kinds of relationships are related with each other. And this is actually a very unique to Kovair, not only just for Agile solution, but for all the solutions this particular relationship diagram is available. Now the next one is actually process diagram. I'll show you the process diagram here because that is another very interesting thing. But then I'll go into the different screen where I'll show you how this process actually is working out. So let me make it a little bigger here. So as you can see right now, this is the same process which I have shown you in the presentation. So right now, this is in blue. That means this particular user story is with the product owner for review. Okay. So as far as this user story is concerned, I have shown you a number of different things. So let me quickly go through the list what I've shown you. I have actually talked about the planning, poker, and effort estimation. I have created a couple of comments. I have added an attachment and URL. I have linked it with a feature, linked it to 2 requirements, create a new test case, and linked it with this particular user story, and shown you all the different relationship in a relationship diagram. And then this is the process diagram where it shows with respect to the process where the user story now. So let's go to our product backlog list here. So let's go to the product backlog list and let's look at our product backlog. So here is the product backlog, the same one, the user story, and that is actually going through the process, and it shows that right now it is actually assigned to Bobby. Bobby is our owner, and it has got this process status. So what we'll do, let me just log in as Bobby in another tab. So I'm going to the login page for Bobby, and let me log in as Bobby here. And when I log in as Bobby, it comes to Bobby's homepage. And in this particular case, the way Bobby has configured, it came straight to my task page for Bobby. And this my task page actually shows a task which is automatically created by the process related to the user story. That's the same contact management for restaurant reservation system, and asking him to review it. So let's go to that particular task and see what Bobby needs to do here. So here is Bobby's task. This is related to the product backlog, and this is the source item. Actually, the relation between the task and the user stories is that you can have multiple tasks assigned to different people at the same time working on the same item, maybe a single user story. And that actually gives a lot of power to Kovair to do parallel things simultaneously. And that is one of the big difference between Kovair and other tools, which are typically a state-based system. In a state-based system, an item can be in one state alone at any point of time. But Kovair being a task-based system, you can have multiple tasks assigned to different people, asking them to do different things simultaneously. So here is Bobby's task, and owner is Bobby. And this is related to this product backlog. And here is the parent fields where actually Bobby goes to, and basically he has to say that whether he approves it or not. So he says it's approved. And also he can put some ratings in this particular case. Let's say he says this must have user story. So that's it. And he can just complete his task. So when he completes the task, he goes back to the My Task page. But now that particular task is gone. As you can see, there is no more task. So let me go back to the list here, and let me just refresh it. When I refresh it, it shows this particular product backlog, this particular user story has now moved and went to Dave and Christiana, two developers, asking them to estimate, right? So let's look at this particular process here. So this is the same process now, but in this particular case, this has actually moved from the review product owner to the next box, which is estimate by the team member. And we have got two team members here, Dave and Christiana, and they are supposed to put some estimate in terms of the planning poker. So let me go to another tab and let me log in as Dave. So here it goes to Dave's home page, and let's go to the Dave's My Task page, and there is a task waiting for Dave, which is again related to the product backlog estimate, and this is from this is from a Workspace Agile Solution. Now this is an example of Dave being a senior developer. He's actually working with multiple different workspaces, multiple different projects. So here is a My Task page, which is kind of a universal inbox for all the different kinds of tasks being assigned to him, and he can see everything in a single page. So in this particular case, let's go through the detail of this particular task where he has to give the estimation. And as I have already mentioned, that we are using the planning poker for that. So let's add the estimation here. So Dave looks at this particular product backlog, and here is the detail of the parent description, for example, which shows the description of this particular user story. Based on that, he has to actually say that what kind of estimated effort he is looking for. So in this particular case, Dave being a senior engineer, he thought that, okay, let's say I should be able to do it within, let's say, 36 hours. Okay, and let's save it. So as far as Dave is concerned, he just added a planning poker estimation of 36 hours. So he's done, he can complete the task. Okay, now similarly, we have to do the same thing as Christiana. So let me go to a new tab and log in as Christiana. So when we log in as Christiana, it goes to Christiana's homepage, and here, just like Dave, there is a task waiting for her, and the activity is estimate. And let's go to that particular task. And here in the planning poker, you see that she can actually see what Dave has put. Now, I know that sometimes for planning poker, it is customary that each of the teammate should not be able to see other people's estimation. As a matter of fact, that was the original planning poker design. But later it was found that if we do that, often what happens that people actually put estimation which are drastically different. Maybe somebody put 10 hours, another person puts 100 hours. And often it becomes very difficult for the Scrum Master to reconcile all of these different arbitrary numbers. So a new thought has come in, which is basically let the team members see other people's estimated effort, and then let them allow to create their own estimation. Of course, they won't be able to edit the other team members' effort, but they would be able to put their own effort in the context of other team members' effort. So in this particular case, Christiana, she can actually see Dave's estimation, and then she can add her own. And let's say Christiana, being a kind of newer developer, junior developer, she thinks that she will need at least 46 hours. And let's save this one. So as we can see, we have got two planning poker items now, one by Dave, another by Christiana. One is 36 hours, another is 46 hours. Let's complete that task. So when we complete task, that particular task is now gone from Christiana's My Task page. Now let's go back to our process here. So there were two tasks created for the team members, Dave and Christiana, to estimate, which they have done. So let me just refresh this process diagram, and that actually brings us to the new one, which is basically finalize estimate and assign resource. Let me make it a little wider here. So this is actually going to the Scrum Master. And who is the Scrum Master? That is Tom. So let me log in as Tom once again. This is actually, we are also logged in as Tom. So this is Tom, but rather than getting out of this process diagram, what I'd like to do, actually I'll log in as Tom again. And this is another very interesting feature of Kovair, that you can actually log in as the same user or multiple different users in different tabs. Then that gives you a lot of flexibility of working simultaneously in different pages of the application. So let me log in as Tom here once again. And when I log in, just like before, it comes to Tom's home page, which is basically this dashboard. But in this particular case, let me go straight to my task page, because I would like to actually see that what task is waiting for Tom. And here is the Tom's task waiting, which is basically finalize the estimation. So now Tom can actually look at those two planning poker items, which is done by Dave and Christiana, and basically he now can give that whatever he thinks is the right item. So the average estimation is 41, right? So we have a 36 and 42. So we have the final estimation here. So actually Tom says that rather than 36, I'll put it 40 here. So though the average is 41, I think it will be 40, and Dave should be able to do it. So let's assign it to Dave for the development and Ted for the testing. So he's also assigning the actual developers and testers, the resources who will be actually doing it. So that's why this final estimation, the Scrum Master is finding out what Dave has put, which was originally 36, but he's giving actually 4 hours more because taking into account Christiana's estimate. So let me just save this one. So here is 36 and 46. So we had this 41 average, and then Tom, the Scrum Master, actually put 40 and assigned it to Dave for development and Ted for tester. So as far as Scrum Master is concerned, he can complete the task. So when he completes the task, that particular task is now gone from his task page. So let's go back to the process once again. So here we are. As far as Tom is concerned, he has completed this task, and let me just refresh this. So it has gone to code to the developer. Now who is the developer? In this particular case, Dave, because Tom has assigned it to Dave. And also one other thing you see here, this particular node, actually this is really a wait node. It is waiting for sprint to start. Sometimes what happens that we create the user story and assign to the future sprint, right? The sprint hasn't started yet. So the coding should not start unless the sprint started. So that's why it waits for those sprint to start. But in this particular case, we are talking about the January sprint, which has already started. That's why it straight goes to the code to the developer. And Dave is the developer. So let's go to Dave's tab. So this is Dave's tab, and let me refresh my task page. There should be a task waiting for Dave to code. So here is the same user story, and now the activity shows code. So let's go to the detail of that particular task. And so the actual coding takes place outside Kovair using Eclipse, Visual Studio, whatever IDE Dave uses, he can do that. And then he can, as a matter of fact, as he's working, he can actually update his estimate. So remember, he originally started with 36, right? And then Tom actually changed it and said that it should be 40. So right now it shows that estimated time to complete is 40. And let's say Dave has worked 10 hours. So actual time spent, he said 10 hours. But still, he needs to work another, let's say, 32 hours. So really, he's changing the total time to really 42, right? So he saves it. And that gives an idea of this particular user story. The 10 hours is already spent, 32 hours estimated time to complete. The percentage complete is 23, automatically it is created, and the total time is 42. It also, original final estimated effort which Tom actually made, that 40 is still there for record, so that we know by comparison that what was the original estimate, in this case 40, and what is the total time. So similarly, after some more development, Dave can come back again and says that I have already spent maybe 30 hours of time, and I still have a little bit of time. I need some more time, maybe 14 hours, and saves that. So now the total time is really 44 hours, and now 68% is complete. And then the third time, when he has actually completed it, he comes back and says that actual time spent is actually 45 hours, and I'm already done, so no more time is required here, so 0, and saves it. And that brings us our percentage complete is 100 hours. So the total time taken is 45 hours, though the original estimate was 40. Okay, so the whole thing is very interactive, very dynamic, and every developer, as they are working on different user story, they can put those things, and the same numbers are actually used to find out what is the total percentage complete for the whole sprint. And once it is done 100%, he can complete the task, and when he completes the task, that particular task is now gone. If I go back to the process here and refresh this process, now it goes to the tester, in this case Ted, because Tom has assigned to Ted for testing, and he can actually do the test case. Remember the test case we have created? Now he can go through that test case and do the actual testing. So I'm not going into the testing at this point of time, but what I have actually shown you how a particular user story goes through an automated process. And remember, for a distributed agile, actual people, Tom, Dave, Christiana, Ted, all of them may be in completely different locations, even in different time zone, even in different continents. And this particular model of distributed agile can be implemented so that all these different people in different places can still take part, and automatically they are assigned this task, whatever time zone they may belong to, but still they can participate in this complex development process, which is automated using Kovair's Omni process. Okay, so now let's go back to our list here, and what we will do, we'll go back to the sprints, and let's create a Scrum meeting for our January sprint. So here is the January sprint, and I'd like to show you that how this Scrum meeting actually is done in a distributed manner. So here is the daily Scrum meetings, and if I open that section, it shows that it already has one meeting done yesterday, which is 12th of January, but we'll be creating a new Scrum meeting. Now in a new Scrum meeting, this is the meeting detail here. So let me create a new one here. So we are doing it for meeting for 1/13/2011. The meeting date is 13th. Last meeting was 12th, And next one, we can, these are optional fields, so we can even give it, let's say we'll have it next Monday. Who is the Scrum Master? In this case, Tom is the Scrum Master, so let's put Tom's name here. These are the team members, so let's put some of these team members here. We have Bobby, we have the Christiana, we have Dave, and we also have Ted, which is our tester. Okay, and let me just save this one. So once I have created this meeting, now what happens that, remember that all of our team members may be distributed in different places. So they can actually come here and asynchronously they can put, for example, their input with respect to this particular meeting. So for example, actually let me do it on behalf of Dave. So let's go back to Dave and let's go to our sprints. And with respect to our January sprint, where is our January sprint? Okay. As a matter of fact, let me go to the sprint view. There are quite a few sprints here. So here is the January sprint. And as Dave, I go to the daily Scrum meeting and I see that there is a Scrum here for 13th of January, and here there are different sections where I have to say that what I have done. For example, what backlog I have implemented. So I come here and as a matter of fact I can select the one I have actually implemented. So I can go to the relate existing ones and let me do the, as a matter of fact I can select different views here. For example, a view by sprint and developer, because that's the, and let's see all user stories, and let's look at this January. So these are the December ones, but here is the January one. And here it shows that all those user stories which are assigned to different developers. So for Christiana, here are, for example, all these different actual time spent, the estimated time spent, and also it shows by bar how much of time has been already spent and what is the percentage. So this gives you a visual way of looking at how much of actual development has taken place. With respect to our Dave, if you remember this 210, this is the user story we were following, we are tracking, and Dave has actually completed it, remember? And he has taken 45 hours, so 100%, so that's why it's shown all green. This is completely done, right? So he selects that because he has already completed that, so he puts that and say done. So that's why it is now done, and that becomes part of our daily Scrum meeting for this one. So it shows that product backlog implemented, this one is already implemented. And Dave also is talking about some of the impediments. So he actually wants to plan to implement the next one. As a matter of fact, he goes to the relate existing and the same thing here. And what we'll do, actually, let's go to our user stories. And here is Dave's new one. So this one, he's working on this. So he said that he will be implementing this one, 199. So that is selected as part of to be implemented. And also, for example, he's having some backlog impediment. He's having some problem with this one. So he can actually say that what kind of problems he's facing. So he can say, so he can select saying that is giving his name, Dave, and he's having a little problem here. That's why he's putting the impediment is that having problem with Eclipse add-on for Ant need a new version. And he can put the resolving comment also saying that downloaded new and will install in the next day. Okay, so that's the impediment. So as you can see that this is actually a Scrum meeting, but asynchronously, Dave, since he is in a different time zone, different place, he can put his input to the meeting. Similarly, every team member can put whatever they have done, what they're planning to do, whatever impediments they have, and all of these things together in this particular meeting. And so when Tom, Scrum Master, he looks into this meeting record, asynchronously everybody has put their own information. This gives him a complete picture of what is really happening, even though all these people are distributed all over the place. So that is how the Scrum meeting is actually executed and recorded in distributed Agile as implemented by Kovair. All right, the next thing we'd like to do is we'd like to go to the reports and show you some of the reporting capability of Kovair. So here, for example, we have a number of different reports created, and it is very easy to actually create reports in Kovair. Once again, there are 4 different reporting engines built in Kovair. You can use HTML to do it. You can use, for example, different kinds of crystal reporting. You can also do an Excel export as well as Microsoft Word. So let me start with the Microsoft Word. So here is, for example, a release document, which is really a Microsoft Word document. So it is generated on the fly. So we have a Word add-on using which you can create a Word template, but the data are all coming from Kovair, though the formatting is done based on Microsoft Word's capability. As you can see that you have the complete flexibility of doing the formatting. So for example, here is the content. So let me just refresh this content, which is automatically generated by Microsoft Word. And let me just refresh this one. And that will refresh the table. So here you see the January sprint, and here is the contact management. This is the user story which we have created as part of the demo, and we have tracked it. So let's go there and let's look at that particular user story. So here is the user story, right? Remember, this is the description we have created. As you can see, it actually preserves all the formatting you have done. In this particular case, we have a simple formatting, but if you have an embedded image and everything, those parts will be all taken into account. And here is all the information about the planning poker, what each of these different developers has put, as you can see here, right? And also all the information about the rating, the type, the backlog status, what was the final estimation effort. It was 40 hours if you remember, but the actual time spent is 45, estimated time to complete 0, and total time is 45, right? So you have got all the information about this user story as part of this particular Word document. And as you can see that you have complete flexibility of how you format this document. So this is a nice way of creating those documents which you can share with your customers, with your partners, with your vendors, and in a Word document format, but you select whatever informations should come from Kovair and how they will be shown. Okay, now let's go back to our reports once again. So let me close this one. There are many other reports available. For example, let's look at a couple of burn down charts. So here is a burn down chart, for example, which is again automatically created based on every sprint. You can do a single sprint burn down chart, or you can do multiple sprint burn down chart also. Here is, for example, let's look at the velocity graph. So here is a velocity graph. So velocity is basically how many function points are done in over a particular time frame. So if you're using the function point, this is one of the ways you can actually calculate what is the velocity of your development. So the point I'm trying to make here is that you can create many different kinds of graphs and many different kinds of reports. And almost all the reports except the Word report you can actually put on the dashboard itself. So if you remember that dashboard, so let me go back to the dashboard once again. If you remember the dashboard, many of these different reports which I have just shown you are actually available as part of the dashboard here. And once again, here is this dashboard where it shows, for example, the percentage complete and everything. So for example, here, remember that our user story, which belongs to our sprint for January, and it shows the 45 hours is the total time spent, actual time spent, and also this is the percentage complete is 100%. And all of those things are taken into account to show what is the sprint, and this is the sprint's total time, actual time spent, estimated time, and what is the percentage complete. So as a Scrum Master, you have got all of these things available at the top level, at the dashboard level. With this, I conclude our demonstration of Agile, distributed Agile solution by Kovair. As you can very well expect, that this is actually a very big system. It takes a lot of time to actually demonstrate all the features. I've just shown you some of the salient features, and I'll be very happy to do a custom demonstration if needed. Thank you very much.